Okay, welcome everybody to the first week of SAT Math online course for DBCR. What you're going to notice is the first document I have in front of me is the actual syllabus for the course. Throughout the entire 11 weeks of this process, we're going to be utilizing this syllabus continuously. It is important that you keep this on hand at all times. I know you guys have a copy from me already, but if you don't have me for a teacher, this is Mr. Howell. If you have Mr. Malachek or Mr. Smith or Ms. Soltis, I will also provide them with some copies of this as well, so you can keep up with where we are each week. Now, in order to actually access any of the documents we're going to be using throughout this entire course, we have to use the Edline interface. So if we simply take a look at the Edline page, if we take a look at our class, under my Algebra 2 section, you're going to notice that I've placed on the upper right a folder called SAT Online Math Class, if you're looking in this area right here. Now, I've been able to get it to be the first thing under Contents, but if your teacher has everything in alphabetical order, it might be under More Content, so you might have to hit that button to see what the other folders are. Now, what you're going to notice is the minute you click on this, it's going to be broken up into 11 weeks. Each week has a certain date. So this week period, we're looking at January 30th through February 5th. Now, every week is successive, except you'll notice there's a break between weeks 10 and 11. The break there is accounted for Easter break. After week 11, I do have an optional week 12 practice section to work on, but again, the week after that is your actual SAT. So I do encourage you to relax for a little while, take a break after that week is over, so that you're fully rested for your exam. If you're able to keep up with these 11 weeks and keep up with all the work, you will not need to have to cram at the end of this entire process. So please, every week, keep up with your material. Now, what you're going to notice under the syllabus, the first thing that you see is the stuff that we're going to be doing in class every week. So today, for example, the major thing that we're going to look at is the syllabus itself, and we're going to look at an overview of the actual course. So an overview of what the SAT and math is all about, how we can do better on the test. We're also going to look at normal curve fitting of scores, and I pretty much want to show you how the test is graded and how the raw score translates to a score out of 800. This week, what I would like everyone to do are 4 different assignments. Yes, there are 4 of them here, so please spread them out over time. Please do not wait until Sunday night to start this material. If you do so, you will not do well here. I'm telling you guys right now, it's a lot of time you're going to need. Now, the first assignment is to read a math vocabulary worksheet. And you're saying, okay, where's that math vocab worksheet? Well, let's go back to Edline and let's take a look at week 1. So when we open up week 1, what you're going to notice is you're going to see first 3 documents here. There's a folder called Homework, but there are 3 documents. One of them is the syllabus, which I'm looking at now. One is the overview, which I'll use in a minute. And the third one is the normal curve fitting, which is the third document I will use. And again, you'll see all 3 documents I have open here. You have your SAT math overview in the middle, the normal curve on the right, and the syllabus as the second document here. We'll also get to a practice section toward the end. Now, each week, what you will also see is a video. So under week 1 right now, there's no video listed here because clearly I'm recording the video. So I can't post a video that doesn't exist. So as soon as this recording is over, you'll see a video appear right over here somewhere. And what you're going to notice is that it'll be a link. You click on the link, it will open a YouTube link, and I'll have the video there. Now, I'm using YouTube instead of Vimeo. I know I used that in the past in class, but YouTube allows us to buffer faster and also for you to track it to any point in the actual video. So for example, if you want to look at 30 minutes and 32 minutes exactly, you can stream right to there, whereas Vimeo used to be very choppy and you would only be able to look at every 3-minute intervals. Anyhow, so your video for each week is going to appear here with the actual material. Under Homework is where you'll see what we were looking for in the beginning. So these are your 4 homework documents, and they correlate to the actual syllabus. So on the syllabus, you see read math vocabulary. So you'll see right here is your math vocabulary, and it simply says read this document. Okay, so you're going to see that the document discusses types of words in math that we use over and over and that the SAT will continue to use. When you're done reading that document, the second assignment on the syllabus you're going to see is complete the math vocab quiz. Well, that's right below it. It says math vocab quiz, and then it simply says complete this document and check answers. Anytime you complete any quiz in this section, you're going to see that there's also going to be a solution. So for this example, when you complete the quiz, the solution is actually right afterwards. So if I were to click on this, here's the actual quiz, and then the actual solution comes right afterward. Okay, so these are all the solutions to all of those quiz spots, all those quiz questions. Now, if you have a practice section, and every week you will have a practice section, you'll see here this is practice section 1. It's a 25-minute section, and there are 20 multiple choice. There will not be a solution until the end of the week. I'm going to give everybody until Friday, so 4 days to at least attempt it in 25 minutes, all 20 multiple choice. Now, after you hear today's lecture, you'll understand when should I guess, when should I leave things blank, and all the questions about how to take the exam. But I want you to time yourself, give yourself 25 minutes, please, and there are 20 multiple choice. At the end of the week on Friday, I'll post the handwritten solutions to all of these. Again, there are many ways to solve these problems, so if you came up with a different method and you'd like to show me, I would love to see it and give you my input. Finally, the last thing I would like you to do for the week, so again, that was completing the practice section 1, is read math formulas that are given and explanations. That's that document. And what you'll notice here is that all it is all the math formulas that are given on the SAT. But then if you notice on the next page, you'll see there are a lot of explanations to when you will use them, how you will use them. So again, I recommend doing this. Now, this is 4 different assignments for this week. So if you're pacing yourself and you want to think logically, you might want to do this on Monday night. This is especially for juniors since you have off on Friday. This might be a Tuesday night activity. This might be a Wednesday, and then Thursday. Now, what you'll notice is that, yes, this is only 25 minutes. To read this might take you about, 10 to 15 minutes. To complete the math vocab quiz and actually check your answers, I'd say 20 minutes with checking. And then reading the math vocab, maybe like 15 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes in case you need to look up some stuff. So again, whenever you don't understand something, either note it so you can ask me or ask a math teacher, or at least look it up online, please. So if something is a little confusing. So you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes of work a night. Now, if you can do this and you can stay true to it for 11 weeks, it will guarantee to help your score. Just simply practicing this over and over again, practicing sections, becoming familiar with it. Just like we do with our daily assessments every single day. Everyone's common nature to them by now. It's second nature. You walk in, you take your quiz. Well, this is just like that. The more you practice it, the easier the process itself will get. Again, along the way, we'll talk about the math behind it and learn the math and discuss problem-solving techniques. But simply practicing the repetition of taking this test alone will help you. Now, that's week 1. Now, week 2, you're going to see that there's a different lesson, a different strategy, and then some new homeworks. So each week, you're going to see a different concept. So again, for this week, we're going to be looking at the syllabus and overview and normal curved fitting. What I'd like to do is take a quick second just to acknowledge a resource that I'll be using this semester. And the resource I'm going to be using is a website. There's a lot of documents that an author has already created that has given everybody permission to use. So it's a simple website, and it's ericthered.com. And what the author does here is he provides many different documents about the SAT, facts and formulas, practice sections, study guides based on difficulty level. He also has some stuff on physics later on if you want to take a look at the physics one, if anyone is interested in physics. There's also an ACT math guide here. So again, we're going to be referencing this website a lot. We're going to use a good amount of the documents that are here and then some other ones as well. Whenever you see Eric the Red at the bottom of the document, that's the acknowledgement that we're using that portion of this interactive website. And as you can see, all of it is freely available for personal as well as commercial use under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license, which we are following. So again, your interface will be Edline. This is one of our documents. Our interface is here. This is your homework for this week. If you go back to week 1, you'll be able to see all the stuff that is entitled in week 1. Again, your video is right here. That's where you're going to see your video appearing there. Now, for those students that are in Mr. Smith's class, or Mr. Malachek's class, or Ms. Soltis' class, that will be using this as well, I'm working currently with Ms. O'Connor so that we can have this folder appear on everyone's Edline. So as soon as that is taken care of, you'll see it appearing under your math class, hopefully within the next few days. Anyway, let's get started. So the first thing I want to do today, again, we looked at the syllabus real quick, but just to quickly skim through it. Every week we're going to have a different topic. So week 2, we're going to look at types of ways to use the calculator on these tests. And then we're going to look at strategies. And you'll see your homework for this lesson is to complete the actual calculator lesson worksheet. Then you're going to have a strategy sample questions. I want you to look at pages 1 to 3 for that one. That's the actual questions, and this is where the solutions are. And then complete practice section 2. You'll have a total of 11 practice sections total, and you'll see one each week. In week 3, we'll start what I call chapter 1, which is numbers and operations. Then we'll get to chapter 2, which is more algebra 1. Chapter 3 is mainly geometry. Chapter 4 is algebra 2 and miscellaneous. What I'm going to try to do is incorporate your probability and statistics into some of these other chapters. There's no major chapter on that topic, but probability and statistics is important to understand for the SAT. Once we get to week 7, we're going to start just going through sample questions, solving sample questions based on topic. So first on numbers and operations. Then we're going to look at algebra and functions. Then we're going to look in week 9 at geometry. And then finally week 10, we'll specifically look at data, statistics, and probability problems. Week 11, we're going to be going over some examples of functions and how functions are actually used on the SAT through every single problem. Functions are all over the place. So that's the 11-week overview. Now, let's actually get to the SAT math overview. So if we take a look at our document here, we're going to be starting with, let's go to the beginning. So a lot of this I'm going to quickly reiterate and discuss, but some of this stuff you may be familiar with. If you are, feel free to skip ahead. You don't need to waste your time sitting here reading through this if you know this already. So the SAT math is a 70-minute exam. Okay, it's broken up into 3 parts. Keep in mind that you have the 3 English parts, or reading parts. They call them verbal, and you also have the writing section. So this is just 1/3 really of your test. It might be more than 1/3 time-wise, but as far as material goes, you have math, reading, and writing. So the math sections, there are 3 of them. The first section on every SAT for math is 25 minutes long, and there are 20 multiple choice questions. So you're looking at, approximately a minute a question, give or take. What your goal here is to solve the easy ones quickly so you can save the time for the more difficult ones, because you'll need more than a minute for some of the difficult ones. The second section is also 25 minutes, but it is 8 multiple choice and 10 gridded. Now remember, multiple choice, A, B, C, D, E, you just bubble in. For gridded, we'll practice going through that example. So gridded is where you have a free response and you give your answer. There are no choices. We'll talk about why you should or should not guess at different problems as well. The third section is a little bit shorter in length. It's 20 minutes, and it's also shorter in questions. There are 16 multiple choice questions. Still about a minute per problem. Okay, give or take some. Now, after you're done taking the SATs, you're going to get a score from 200 to 800. In a minute, I'm going to discuss with you what that actually means. There are a total of 54 problems on this, covering Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. All of the formulas that you need are provided at the beginning of each section. Part of your homework this week is to look at those formulas and look at when you will use them. And there's a document under your homework to do this as well. But these are some examples of the formulas that you will receive. Now, overview of the types of the questions. Multiple choice, there are 44 of 54 of them. There are choices A through E. Okay, we'll talk a minute about how you can guess or whether you should or should not guess with multiple choice. The next type of question is a gridded question. Gridded questions take up only 10 problems on the second section. Now, for the gridded problems, what we want to consider is the fact that when we're looking at a gridded section, we have 8 multiple choice problems followed by 10 gridded. Well, on all of these tests, the problems range from easy to medium to difficult. So even in the first section, there's 20 problems. There might be, let's say, 7 easy, 7 medium, and then 6 difficult in the first section. And in the last section, there's 16 of them. It might look like 6, 6, and 4. Again, easy, medium, difficult. Well, this middle section is a little bit more confusing because you have 2 subsections. So, for the 8 multiple choice, what you're really looking at is you'll have about 2 or 3 easy, 2 or 3 medium, and then the last 2 or 3 difficult. What will happen, though, is once you get to the gridded, which is in the same section, it starts over. Here you're going to have about 3 or 4 easy, 3 or 4 medium, and then like 3 or 4 difficult, depending on what the section is. But again, they range from easy to difficult within each section, but section 2 is the key section to remember. And remember, it's not called section 2 on the test, but the section that has multiple choice and gridded. It goes from easy to difficult within 8 multiple choice. Then once you get to the gridded over here, it starts over. Once you're in the gridded section, you're doing those 10 gridded problems, it starts over with easy. So when you see gridded, it is extremely important that you remember the first 2 or 3 problems under gridded will also be easy level problems. Now, your question might be, how do I grid it? What do I do on the test? How do I actually complete my answer? There's no bubbles or bubble choices for A through E. Well, take a look at the right here. What you're going to notice is that if you get an answer, all you have to do is bubble in the corresponding location. So, say my answer was 2/3. Well, I know 2/3 as a decimal can be written as 0.6 repeating. It's the actual representation. I could round it to 0.67. I could really round it to 0.667. I could represent this really as 6/9. Those are all the same things. They all mean 2/3. So I have many ways to bubble this in. If I want to choose to bubble it in with a fraction line, I might write 6/9. Well, that doesn't make sense. I'd probably write 2/3 though. So here let's think about, okay, now I'm putting 2/3 because that's the simplest form. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to simplify. But in a minute, we're going to see that if you don't simplify, sometimes your answer won't fit. So here you would bubble in 2/3 for 2/3. Okay, let's say your answer didn't come out to a fraction and it was a decimal in your calculator you used, and you forgot what the fractional representation was. You want to type in 0.66 or write in 0.6. So 6, let's say 7. Let's say I'm using this representation. So that's decimal 6, 6, and then a 7. Okay, again, you can represent it either way you would like. Now, let's say you get an answer of 10,000, and I want to grid in 10,000 as my answer. It's not even feasible because take a look. There are 5 spots here. There are 5 different locations. Well, I only see 4 boxes. So an answer of 10,000 cannot exist, which tells us that the answers must go from 0 to 9999. Now, notice there's no negative sign either. So your answers must be positive. They must be positive here. If you were to get an answer for one of your problems, and let's say it wasn't 10,000, but let's say it was, let's say it was 250 over 1,000. Well, I can't enter that in there. That's too many spots. I would need 8 spots. 3 for the numerator, 1 for the fraction line, and 4 for the denominator. But if I think about this, well, this is really just 25 over 100. Well, that still doesn't work. Well, I can reduce further, and most people know right away that it's 1/4. So for this problem, you would have to grid in 1/4. 1/4. Remember, it doesn't even matter what you write up here, really. It's what you bubble in that matters. So make sure your bubbles are in the correct spot. Okay, that's a quick example of this. Now, if your answer turned out to be a mixed number, so for example, let's say that our answer for one problem was 3.5. You cannot enter 3.5 as a fraction. So either you must convert it to an improper, 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, so 7 over 2, or write it as a decimal. So either represent it like this or like this. This does not make sense because there is no and symbol. You can't say 3 and 1/2. Okay, you cannot say 3 and 1/2. Now, it really doesn't matter where you start off gridding. So I can really grid in 7/2, that's correct. 7/2, that's fine. Or I could actually grid in 7/2 here. It really doesn't matter. I would suggest just starting from the left, but again, it really doesn't make a difference. Now, if your answer is something like 3/20, then it does make a difference because there's 4 spots needed to fill this in. So you'll have to use all 4 spots or all 4 columns. Now, let's get to the idea of guessing versus not guessing in points in a minute. And we're going to see how this can affect our answers here. Before we do that, let's take a look and say to ourselves, if you have any types of questions about what will and what not be required, this is a simple table that outlines it. So for example, you don't have to know about the quadratic formula. It could help you, and you may use your quadratic formula program that we've written on our calculator, but you don't have to know it to complete the exam. You don't have to know complicated operations with radicals. So for example, rationalizing a binomial denominator like we did back in concepts, I think it was 7 or 8 this year. You don't have to be able to do that spot. Next, complicated factoring. So you're not going to have factors where you have to use maybe AC method, where you get factors that are fractional. Generally, it'd be standard factoring problems. No geometric proofs, and there's no trigonometry, which is one big difference between the SAT and the ACT. The ACT has trigonometry on it, where the SAT does not. Here's the major categories of the SAT. I'm not going to go through them and read them off. You're welcome to look at them on your own. But generally speaking, it shows that there's arithmetic, algebra 1 and 2, geometry, and data and probability. So we're looking at statistics and probability. So again, this document is under your week 1 stuff. If you want to look a little further, that's fine. Next. In each math section, they go from easy to difficult, as we said. Now, you want to think about the score that you would like to get. So if you're a student that's looking for a 700 and 800 kind of score, you're looking for almost a perfect score. We'll talk about in a minute how you can correlate that. But it is good to know how the scoring actually works. So to discuss that, let's start with the example. You have 54 problems on the test. If a random student, say, answered 30 questions correct, 10 questions incorrect, and let's say they left the other 14 then blank here. Now, if the student were to do this, they have to then consider the fact about the incorrect problems. And here's where it works. Every time you get a problem right, you get 1 credit. So this person gets 30 credits for the 30 correct. Every time you leave something blank, you don't get any credit. It just acts as a neutral or 0. But when you get something incorrect, you actually lose credit, which is different from anything I've ever seen in high school before. If you get something wrong on a test, you just don't get credit for it. But in the SAT, if you get it wrong, you get negative credit. Every problem that is a multiple choice question only, every multiple choice question loses a quarter of a credit. So for 10 problems times a quarter of a credit per problem, here we're looking at 2.5 points. So this person would not get a 30 raw score, but they would get a 30 minus the 2.5. And that would give them a yielding score, a net score of 27.5. Again, that's your raw score. In a minute, we'll see how that correlates to a score out of 800. Again, that's for multiple choice. If you have a grid-in that is incorrect, it is considered to be blank. So again, write this down. Do not leave blanks on grid-ins. The grid-ins, you can guess anything. And my suggestion to you is if you actually run out of time and you have about a minute left and you need to guess on the grid-in, you might want to guess the choice 0 or 1. Those seem to be numbers that do come up more often than others. But again, use your general guessing skills if you have to. I would like you to complete them all, obviously, but if you run out of time and you need to take an educated guess, do so. If you have no idea at all on the grid-in, please take a guess of 0 or 1. On the multiple choice, if you don't get to a problem, don't guess. Okay? Now, as you can eliminate more and more problems, or choices rather, you can then consider guessing. So this is where it gets into complicated questioning. Now, so you have 5 choices, A, B, C, D, E. Clearly, we can see that you have a 1 out of 5 chance of getting it right. Now, if you can't eliminate anything, it means you have a 20% shot of getting it right. Let's say for this example, though, you know choice C is not it. The answer is negative and it asks for an angle measure. We know angle measures aren't going to be considered negative as far as geometry goes. So now you have 4 choices. So the minute you can eliminate 1 eliminated, you now have a 25% chance. Still not really worth it. Because you know what? If you get it wrong, you lose a quarter of a point, which is still 25%. So you'd be breaking even. What I want you to then think about is this. If you can eliminate another choice, now you have a 1 out of 3 chance. So if 2 are eliminated, you have a 1/3 chance or a 33% chance. If you can eliminate that much, then it's a possibility you may want to guess. And that I'm leaving up to you. That's an educated guess if you think about those 3. If you can eliminate 3 choices and you only have 2 left to choose, so 3 eliminated, you have a 50-50 shot. This is where you definitely should take an educated guess. If you can narrow it out to 2 choices correctly, so narrowing these 3 out for real reasons, not just because they don't look right, but for actual reasons about the problem. So if you see that you have, let's say, an angle and it says find the angle and you clearly know the angle is acute, and one of the choices is 95 degrees, well 95 degrees is obtuse, so that wouldn't make sense. That's why you can rule it out. So if you can rule out 3 choices with good reasoning, then it is worth it to definitely take a guess. So you should guess here. It's up to you to guess here. I would not guess in either of these 2 cases if you can only eliminate 1 choice. Now, with that said, again, that's only for multiple choice. With the grid-in, always, always, always answer. Because the grid-in, there's no probability anymore. Because you could choose any number between 0 and 9999, with every decimal in between, every fraction in between. So technically, it's an infinite amount of answers. It is restricted by the 4 spots, but we can think about it that there's so many choices it wouldn't matter. So guess on the grid-in, multiple choice, think about it before you do it. Now, in order to segue into what we're going to do in a minute, I'm going to show you the actual conversion now. So if we look at our conversion scale, and this is a document that the same website provided, ericthered.com or ericthered.com/tutor here. Okay, so you can see that at the bottom of the page. So what this person did for us was nicely take a look at raw scores. And you'll notice that the top raw score is, as we said, 54 points. And notice, if you get 54 to 54, your score is 800, no matter when you took this test. So if you took the test in January of 2010, as opposed to, in this case, this would be October of 2008. If you get 54, you got a perfect score. Now, what you're going to notice, though, is that if you get 1 wrong, or if you leave 1 blank and your score is a 53, that score can change. And that's the interesting part to look at. So take a look now at the second one. So now what we're going to look at is the entire second row. We want to think about the second row and what happens here. Well, take a look. On this test, it turned out that 770 was what you got if you had 53 right, or you got 53 points. So if you leave 1 blank and you get all the rest right, in January of 2010, right here, January 2010, your score would have been a 770. But hey, you know what? In May of 2007, the same exact score of 53 caused the student to have 800. Now, the reason these are different is simply because it's always going to be normalized. So the test itself is skewed. It changes every single test based upon the students that you're competing against. So what the author did was show that, yes, 53 in this test was a 770. So the green ones over here on the left, all this green is like the easy tests. The yellow happened to be the medium one, and the harder ones were on the red. And the harder one doesn't mean that the test itself is harder. It just means that you're taking the test with more competitive students. So the author organized all these scores. So you can see that clearly, earlier our example was a 32. Well, a 32 down here corresponds to a 550. Well, that's in that month. It could be as high as a 570 according to this month. So that range can change as well. And you're going to see that the author changes these. Now, if you want to look at the rest of them, I'll leave you time to look on your own. And you're going to see on the second page that this year on the second page, if we can get to it, is critical reading. You'll see critical reading score is the same thing. After that, you're going to see your writing scores with multiple choice. Then after that, you'll see the math scores again, but now it's sorted by month. So if you take the test in January, take a look at January. This is this entire first section. So here we're looking at all the January possibilities, and you can tell that they range. Sometimes in January it's difficult, sometimes it's medium, sometimes it's easy. In March, it looks like it's been medium in 05. Well, the May test, which is the other test that you guys will be taking, seems to be, it looks like, either medium or difficult. It didn't look like there were any easy columns listed there, but you never know. 1 year changes. Every year is different. Then again, here is another one of the major times that people take their tests, in October. And you'll be taking this test when you're seniors. And you'll see here that it actually looks like October is actually the best month to take it. There were 3 easier quote-unquote tests. So keep that in mind when you're taking your test so you know how your score actually works. Now, back to the overview. If we take a quick look here now, we're going to see calculators. The following calculators are acceptable. You can have a for function, scientific, or graphic. Okay, I recommend you have to have a calculator. You know that for class, it'll be useful in the actual test. Some general strategies to summarize this. Use your test booklet. You can write anywhere on the test booklet, any blank spot. But again, only answers count on the answer booklet. Anything that's bubbled in, anything in your test booklet means nothing. It's scratch paper. Okay? You can use as much of that book as you want, write anywhere you'd like. But again, you make sure you stay in the section that you're working on. So if you're on section 1, which happens to be, say, a math section, you don't turn to section 2 for a new scrap paper. You have to use the scrap paper in section 1. B, find the quantity the question asks for. This is the hardest thing, believe it or not. A lot of students do all this work, but then don't answer the question being asked. For example, say you solve a problem and you get x equals 4, but the problem at the end said, find the value of 2x. Well, 2x would then just be 8. It's double x. Well, that's your answer. I guarantee you that will be one of your multiple choice problems. You have to answer the question that is being asked. Make sure you don't stop in the middle of the problem. Another strategy we're going to talk about more next week is plugging in numbers. If you can plug in numbers to suggestions, you can find a pattern and look to see which choice makes more sense. When you are plugging in numbers, or when you're looking for a starting value, choose values that are convenient. So if you're looking at angles, you might want to choose 0, 30, 45, 60, 90. Think about angles like that if you're guessing. Okay, use logical thought processes. Combine or multiply systems, so we're looking at systems of linear equations. This is with substitution method and with elimination method. Okay, so whenever you have two equations, think about possibly combining them to solve. Make yourself some lists. It's a possibility that a lot of these have patterns, they have sequences. A list will help. If you have a figure that is not drawn to scale and you're able to draw it to scale, there's a good chance that that might help you. Again, if a figure is not drawn to scale, it will say figure not drawn to scale. If you're looking for the area of a shaded region, say you want the area of the shaded region. Okay, well to me this is really a rectangle minus off a semicircle. So if you can find the area of the whole rectangle, say it's 20 units squared area, say it's 20 units squared, and the area of the semicircle happens to be 3 pi, or let's say, yeah, 3 pi or 4 pi, we'll use 4 pi units squared, assuming the radius is 2. We can say that, well, the shaded area is just a total, this rectangle minus the part that is left out, or the semicircle. So it'd be 20 minus 4 pi. Okay, and then again, units squared. The SAT loves to leave answers in terms of pi. So this answer, 20 minus 4 pi, is not numerical, or I mean it is numerical, but it's not an approximation anymore. 20 minus 4 pi as a number, I mean, you're looking at 3.14 times 4 is around 12, so you're looking a little bit under 8. The answer will not be there a little under 8. It'll be left in terms of pi. Again, test numerical answer choices. We talked about that a minute ago. And then change variable answer choices into numbers. If you have variables, you can possibly plug in and see how that works. So again, this was a short video. It was the intro. What I would like you guys to do this week is look on Edline, look at your homework. This might have timed out. Yes, it did. Look at your homework on Edline. Take a look at your syllabus. When you're on Edline, if you'd like to, you feel free to print this out. Again, I'm not going to print any of this stuff out. It's all going to be available on Edline. I don't want to waste paper, and it's a lot of stuff for you guys to be carrying, so everything will be here. So after this, once you're done with this video, start your week 1 work, take a look at your homework on here, click on your homework folder, and you can even save and download all these PDFs to your own computer and view them. If you want to print them, feel free to print them. Again, every week you can use your syllabus to go back and take a look. It's week 1. This is what you need to do for next week. So again, next week I want to see that everybody has done their math vocab, your math vocab quiz, read the formulas, and complete section 1. On Friday, I'll post the solution to section 1 for you to go and check your work. Again, I know I talk fast sometimes. Use your scroll at the bottom of YouTube so that you can go back and re-listen to things that didn't make sense the first time around. Next week, we're going to take a look at calculator lesson and math strategies. Have a great week, and I'll see you again in a week.